Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo. Nice, chilly November 4th day. Wow, is it chilly, man? We went from warm weather to really cold weather. Real sharp cold out here right now. It's ski season, a lot of different places. They're opening up their ski resort. Hockey season is in full swing. I was at the ice rink the other day up north in Scottsdale, and boy, was it chilly in the ice rink. That is for sure. But anyway, go Coyotes, go Roadrunners, right? We hope the best for them. And Bob says it was freezing this AM. That's right. Oh man, I don't even know. I don't think it got below 32, but it sure felt like it. And I bet you if you were on the mountain anywhere out here, any of the mountains, you probably were around that temperature, but definitely chilly. So hope the stream goes better today. Yesterday, for some reason, we just had some issues, I guess, but we hope today it goes a little better. So anyway, we're in First Samuel 25. You could always check out the archives at my YouTube channel and kind of get the books that we've gone through or get the chapters that you missed. I try to upload those pretty much daily, every other day, something like that, but get them on there. So right now we're going to be in First Samuel 25, the second part of that book, that chapter. And we're kind of in midstream in narrative of this incredible story. Seems kind of out of the blue, right? With David and this guy Nabal. And David just gets done the prior chapter having a lot of mercy on Saul. And then this chapter, man, he really is on fire and wants to kill this guy Nabal. Now Nabal's, let's face it, Nabal's not a nice guy, and he's a shrewd businessman, and he just will not help King David at all. And it's about he actually reviles David and insults him. And so David takes that from Nabal, and he's gets his guys together, David does, and says, let's go wipe them out. Let's not only wipe out Nabal, but let's wipe out his whole crew, that kind of action. So super, super serious, super intense. Stuff's going on. And it seems like David here just shouldn't be doing this. This is something that David, you know, anger gets the best of him. And he does not give anger over to the Lord. He does not, look at people like Jesus did. And Jesus said, hey, you know what? I'm going to commit judgment into the hands of my Father. So when people insult me, I'm going to just say, hey, God could judge them better than me. He doesn't do that. Instead, David wants to take revenge. So one of Nabal's servants runs and goes to Nabal's wife, Abigail, and says to Abigail, yo, your husband is off his rocker. Man, he has flipped his lid. David went to him, was nice, totally cool. Can we have some food? Can we have some of your barbecue? You're going to be doing this festival thing. Can we partake of it? Can we be a part of this? Maybe it was a service to the Lord. I don't know, but can we join in? And Nabal just was like flat out, no way, man. And and again insulted David and his men. And so Abigail, now the wife of Nabal, has to kind of deal with her husband's mischief, her husband's um, insults to King David. And it's funny, but Nabal's, even his servants, those that worked for him, we could call them his employees, said that he is a scoundrel that one cannot speak to. And that's sad, right? Even your employees look at you and go, man, what a jerk. And that's rough. So we really got to look at the way we're seen by other people. And we got to go, man, do people think I'm a jerk? And if people do, then you got to kind of ask the question, why? Why is that? And sometimes, us Christians can get this idea that, we want to be hated by the world. And if we were hated, and it's not that we're hated by the world so much for our love for Christ, but we're hated by the world because we're just mean. We're just cruel people. We tend to be insensitive. And so, like, how do I talk about people? What comes out of my mouth? Do people hear that and go, man, not a nice guy. Don't want to talk to him about anything. Ugh. So Abigail made haste in verse 18, took 200 loaves of bread, 2 skins of wine, 5 sheep already dressed, 5 sheaves of roasted grain, 100 clusters of raisins. Remember, she was a wealthy, beautiful woman, the Bible tells us. Only a few women of the Bible are called beautiful, right? Only a few. Can you name them? Can you name those women that are in the Bible that are called beautiful? Hmm. Think through that. Maybe write that in the comment corner if you have the answer. But Abigail's one of them, by the way. And she's called beautiful and she's super wealthy. So she gets all this stuff together and she said to her servants, go before me, see I am coming after you. And she did not tell her husband Nabal. So she says, let's get this stuff, let's go. I'm going to be right behind you. And so she rode on the donkey that she went under cover of the hill. And there was David and his men coming down toward her, and she met them. Now David had said, surely in vain I have protected all that this fellow has. Now, before David goes into his spiel, just want you to see something. And David said that he's going to wipe out all the guys. Um, you know, that's what David, said. He said, let's see, um, let me find it. Yeah, so David, it says when he heard about Nabal's insults, he says, "Hey, we're gonna gird with our swords, and we're gonna go up there, and we're gonna take out their guys. And so it's interesting. The reason why I point that out because it's interesting that Abigail, a woman, goes before David and says, "Hey, I'm gonna put myself out there," you know. And I wonder if that was God's way of like kind of mellowing out David. You know, maybe God does that with us too, as He puts things in our path. You know, where we're like, "I'm gonna go do this," and then something comes in our path and kind of holds us back. You know, and Abigail's that kind of quenching of David's fire, to go after Nabal and his men and wipe everybody out. And I find that cool that God's got this, God does protect us in some serious, interesting ways. Sometimes it's just from ourselves, right? From our own madness. Just puts something in our path, puts that thing in our path, right? To prevent us from going down that road. And I'm sure we'll one day it'll come to our mind about, whoa, man, that's amazing how God protected me from that. It's neat to think this morning that God's my protector. And that's what the Bible teaches. And that He's always, seeking to help me. And He's moving my paths in righteous ways, and trusting God to do that. So David says um, to Abigail, and they meet. And David had said, "Surely in vain I have protected all that this fellow has in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that belongs to him." See, David was like a police system to Nabal when he was doing his work. And David, you get the idea, the picture is that David's asking for, in a sense, payment for his protective services to Nabal. And Nabal just instead insults David. And so you can kind of see the situation develop here. And David says nothing was missed by him, meaning nothing, he got nothing stolen. And he has repaid me evil for good. May God do so and more also to the enemies of David, if I leave one male of all who belong to him by morning light. See, there it is. David says, I'm going to kill every male. But who confronts him? The female, the woman. Isn't that cool? So I hope you see kind of God's hand in this to kind of hold back David. So now when Abigail saw David, she dismounted quickly from the donkey, fell on her face before David, and bowed down to the ground. Isn't that cool? A picture of submission, humility, something we struggle with in our day and age, right? Is that idea of submission, coming underneath someone's command, right? Coming underneath someone, putting myself volitionally, not coercively, not forcibly, but coming under someone volitionally, moving myself into a position where I am listening to that person. Man, that's really important. What a beautiful picture Abigail gives of that kind of submitted heart. She's a wealthy woman. She's one of the most beautiful women of the day, right? Total nice looking lady, right? Totally rich lady, has all the clout and all the money and all the stuff, all the bling, so to speak. But what does she do? She humbles herself before King David. And who's King David at this point? Man, is he really sitting on the throne as king? No, he's trying to run away from Saul. He's been out living in caves. He's been, doing side jobs, protecting people, their stuff, security jobs, helping people out, that kind of thing, trying to, using his gifts as a military commander to maybe make some money. And interesting, that's kind of the vibe you get from this. But what does Abigail do? She comes right underneath. And I love that, man. That's what I need to do in my life. I need to learn to submit one another out of the fear of the Lord, the Bible says. Where's your heart in submission? Where's my heart in submission? Hmm, big questions. And so she fell at his feet and said, On me, my Lord, on me let this iniquity be. Whoa, what a amazing lady. She says, Don't put this on my husband, put it on me. Whoa. Pretty intense. She says, And please let your maidservant speak in your ears and hear the words of your maidservant. Please let not my lord regard this scoundrel, Nabal. Hmm. she calls her husband also a scoundrel. So not only is Nabal's employees calling him scoundrel, but Nabal's wife also uses that term scoundrel. For as his name is, so is he. See, Nabal means fool. That's what his word literally means. So this guy was a foolish man, a scoundrel at that, a very wealthy scoundrel, very conniving guy financially. And it says, for his name is folly, and folly is with him. But I, your maidservant, did not see the young men of my Lord whom you sent. Um, Now therefore, my Lord, as the Lord lives and as your soul lives, since the Lord has held you back from coming to bloodshed and from avenging yourself with your own hand, now let your enemies and those who seek harm for my Lord be as Nabal. And now this present which your maidservant has brought to my Lord, let it be given to the young men who follow my Lord. Please forgive the trespass of your maidservant, for the Lord will certainly make for the Lord an enduring house. Therefore, my Lord fights the battles of the Lord, and evil is not found in you throughout your days. So she acknowledges David's position, his place, right? His authority. And she knows that David could do harm to the family, but Abigail stands in the gap. And I find this cool. You know, there's was more people on the line than just Nabal. There was other men and families that were associated with those men. But Abigail stands in the gap, and sometimes I need to think of myself daily and go, "Hey, do I stand in the gap for people? You know, am I their advocate? Do I come alongside them, help them out? You know, do I am I positive for them? You know, sometimes people work underneath a dictator, and it's difficult. Sometimes people work underneath someone who's just very mean and aggressive. And and sometimes we could wish that dictator guy, that tyrannical leader, you know, be taken out, but we don't realize there's a lot of families underneath that person, right? And you know, Abigail here stands in the gap for those people, which is awesome. and And so in verse 29 it says, "Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God. And the lives of your enemies he shall sling out as from the pocket of a sling. And it shall come to pass when the Lord has done for my Lord according to all that the good that he has spoken concerning you, and has appointed you ruler over Israel, that this will be no grief to you, nor offense of heart to my Lord, either that you have shed blood without cause, for that my Lord has avenged himself. But when the Lord has dealt with my Lord, then remember your maidservant." Now, the tricky part about this section in reading it is that there's a lot of the word Lord happening, and there's capital Lord and there's lowercase Lord. And it kind of is confusing, you know, this rendition, this New King James version of the Bible when reading it. Like if I was just reading the Bible for the first time and I was reading 1 Samuel chapter 25, this might be a little redundant. I might be like, what is this going? What's being spoken of it? I might not understand at all what's happening. Probably if I took out like the New Living Bible, or a modern translation or something like that, or maybe even a paraphrased version of the Bible, it might break this down a little easier to read. But the whole thing that Abigail is saying is that, David, you are the one that's chosen by God to rule over Israel. You are the small L, the small Lord. Therefore, I submit to you. I'm coming underneath you, you know. But my Lord, our Lord together is the capital L, the big Lord, you know, God. And and so she keeps saying, "Hey, I know the big Lord has chosen you." You know, the little Lord. You know, Lord being the idea, the little L Lord being the idea of judge or ruler. You know, um, and so. when you read it, that's what she's saying. That's her heart. And that's a cool heart, right? And that's that beautiful heart of, coming underneath, understanding, that someone has been put in a place. And that place is something that has been done by the big Lord, by God. And so I need to be reverent to that. I need to be respectful to that. Where Nabal just, man, he knew of David, even though he's like, who is David? Who is Jesse? Meaning, who is these people compared to me? Right? That's what Nabal was getting at. Abigail admits, like, hey, we know of you, David. We know what God's doing in your life. We know things. We know what God's called you to do. But what? Nabal's just being a real, turd, right? He's just being a real yuck, a real, you know, not just a real arrogant dude, you know. And so it's cool that she, um, says this. It's very cool. And it says, and it came to pass when the Lord had done for my Lord according to all that he's spoken concerning. And you see that she's just reiterating that, hey, God's done this great work in you. Then David said to Abigail in verse 32, blessed is the Lord of Israel, who sent you this day to meet me, and blessed is your advice, and blessed are you, because you have kept me this day from coming to bloodshed and from avenging myself with my own hand. David realizes he takes the rebuke from Abigail. Now notice how Abigail rebukes him ever so what? Gently. Isn't that beautiful? Ever so gently. She brings him to the place of understanding his error, right? We know who you are, David. We know that God's called you. Please, think about what you're going to do. You don't want to shed innocent blood today. You don't want to just act on your anger. God's called you to great things. Think through it. I mean, amazing way. A lot of affirmation there. A lot of kindness in her voice. And David gets it. And I think this is an awesome kind of structure to how we can talk to people who we need to confront, to be gentle, to be positive, to help them understand the good and the not so good, right? But don't just come to them with this big barrage of stuff. And, Abigail, through her act of courage, courageous submission, we could say. Courageous submission. Now, how cool is that? Courageous submission. You got to have courage to submit, you know. And it says that David was changed and he realized what he was going to do was wrong, that his anger was getting the best of him, and he was out on a murderous tear. And he says, for indeed as the Lord God of Israel lives, who has kept me back from hurting you, unless you had hurried and come to meet me, surely by morning light no males would have been left to Nabal. So David received from her hand what she had brought him, and said to her, go up in peace to your house. So she basically pays kind of the fee of their protection. She gives him stuff and says, go up in peace to your house. See, I have heeded your voice and respected your person. Wow. King David honors Abigail. She doesn't go, oh, that's a woman, I'm not going to listen. No way. No way. Check this out. The one who submits is the one who is listened to. Oh, that's so different from the way we think, huh? We think, oh, if I submit to someone, that means they're not going to listen to me. No, the one who submits is the one who is listened to. You know who submitted the most? Jesus. Jesus submitted to the Father the greatest. And yet he is the one we listen to, right? Very cool. So sometimes we get that wrong. We think submission is a negative instead of a positive. And the positive is when we submit righteously and courageously, that we become people that really are worth listening to. And so it's very cool, very interesting to think through that a little bit in our life. Now it says when Abigail went to Nabal, and there he was, holding a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry with him, and he was very drunk. Therefore she told him nothing, little or much, until morning light. So it was in the morning, when the wine had gone from Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became like a stone. Then it happened after about 10 days that the Lord struck Nabal, and he died. Whoa, interesting. Wow, right? You think too much of yourself? Take heed lest you think you stand, lest you fall. Ooh, right? Nabal thinks he's the greatest. Oh, man, he ain't. So when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord." I wonder if Jesus, by the way, referred to this guy when Jesus gave this wonderful little parable of this guy, or this little story of this guy who was rich, and he had didn't know what to do with his riches, so he built barns and he put all of his riches in it, and he felt comfortable and said, "Man, let us eat and drink and let us be merry. You know, I have plenty of stuff in my storehouses, blah 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 blah." And it says that he did not know that he was going to die, and then all of his stuff was just going to be in the barn, right? He just didn't use it wisely, and Jesus calls that person a fool, right? Meaning we need to use our stuff wisely. We need to use it for today. We need to make sure that we're not just banking everything, and we're not, you know, being proactive in our communities, helping people out. So it's so when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord, who has pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and has kept his servant from evil. For the Lord has returned the wickedness of Nabal on his own head." So instead of David, in his murderous rage, going after Nabal, it seems like Nabal was taken care of by God. It just happened, right? Wow, what a trip. Maybe David didn't have to inflict or go after him revengefully. God could take care of it. And that's something we have to trust. God can take care of something. Help me to trust. Help me to pray. Help me to seek to love someone instead of hate them and go after them. Then she rose, and then it says, and it's David proposed. And David sent and proposed to Abigail to take her as his wife. And when his servants of David had come to Abigail at Carmel, they spoke to her, saying, "David sent us to you to ask you to become his wife." Then she arose, bowed her face to the earth, and said, "Here is your maidservant, a servant to wash the feet of the servants of my Lord." Wow, super humble, man. I'm going to wash your servants' feet. That's how much I'm going to serve you. I'm going to come underneath you. I'm not going to just wash your feet, man. I'm going to wash your servants' feet. I mean, just a beautiful heart, right? Knowing that, she of course is a widow now, right? What's going to happen to her? So Abigail rose in haste and rode on a donkey, attended by 5 of her maidservants, and she followed the messengers of David and became his wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and so both of them were his wives. But Saul had given Michal, his daughter, David's wife, to Palti, the son of Laish, who was from Galim. So really weird ending to that chapter, right? All of a sudden you get this idea that, man, David is taking some wives, right? What's the deal? David, you know, has something that he battles. And it's funny. He has anger issues that he battles, right? But he's also got lustful issues. Sexual lustful issues, you know, and maybe power issues as well. But these things all are in him. So sometimes we get this idea that, oh, King David is amazing, what amazing guy, but man, there's a lot of frailty in this man as well that we can relate to. There's parts of us that we see that we go, oh, okay, that's cool. But then if we're honest, you look at other parts and boy, you are off, 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 man. And thing is our pride just does not want to look at that. Our pride will do everything to keep us from looking honestly at ourselves. And so, but David, here we see that a little glimpse of something that's going to haunt him in his world, and that is a sexually intimate, lustful attitude that will continue to follow him as well in his life. And so, the saga continues, but there's so many cool things in the chapter, just looking at the personality of Nabal, looking at the revengeful heart of David, seeing the intercessory work of that courageous submission of Abigail for someone who doesn't deserve it, Nabal, but also standing in the gap for those employees of Nabal. And what a beautiful heart, an advocating heart that she has. And that through that courageous submission that she is listened to by David, and David does come to his senses. And then we see that, God has a plan and does, judge in his time. And David didn't have to go after Nabal, and then we see that David takes Abigail as his wife, as she is now a widow. She now comes underneath David and underneath his authority, as the up and coming king of Israel. But yet David also goes and and does some other things that we see that are really going to follow him. He's going to struggle with. So, wow, what a chapter. Very long chapter, but very cool. Hey, you guys have a good weekend. Enjoy it. I hope the best for you all, okay? Take care. Bye bye.